Hi everyone, I'm Sam, and welcome to Cooking at Little Samsterdam. This week I'm going to try a little variation on the dish I made last week. Last week was a pasta dish that had some ground sausage meat that I rolled up into meatballs, and this week I decided to try a more veggie-friendly version of it. So I went to Trader Joe's and got this beefless ground beef. Looks like it's soy-based, and it has a consistency of ground beef, so hopefully I'll be able to mix it up or roll it up into meatballs just like last week. The only thing I have a little bit of apprehension about is that because it's not actual meat, that it won't be as flavorful. I see that there is some salt in here and some other things that are probably giving it flavor. So I decided that because of I was afraid that there wouldn't be enough flavor, to add some anchovies to the dish. Now I know this kind of defeats the purpose of it being a vegetarian dish, so maybe it's a more pescatarian friendly dish, but mostly vegetables. There are no mammals in this dish. What the chopped up anchovies does is it adds a nice bit of saltiness and more flavor, more meaty flavor to the dish without actually making it taste fishy. If I were to add more than a can of anchovies, it might get that fishy flavor, but we'll try it with the anchovies and see how that tastes. And then, instead of the salad macaroni that I used last week, just regular macaroni. Let's see how that goes. So, like I said, my dishes don't really have that much of a difference between them week to week, but I like to add little variations to it just to change it up a bit. And this is actually the first time I'm using vegetarian meat in my dishes, so we'll see how that goes. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with a lot of chopped garlic. So this is I don't know how many cloves of garlic here, there's a lot. But I love garlic, so you can never have too much garlic, in my opinion. So what I usually do when I chop them is, at first I just kind of get them underneath the knife and just slam it so it's nice and crushed. And I'm going to do this with all the cloves. Okay, these are all crushed by my knife. What the crushing does is it helps to release juices in the garlic that would not otherwise be released if I were to just chop them finely. So now that they're all crushed, you just kind of get them in a pile, and I like to just have like the point of the knife on one end and just start bringing it around and finally chopping them. Another pile and a little bit more chopping. I honestly don't have the best technique. I'm not great with knives, but this seems to work just fine. And again, this seems like a lot of garlic, and it is, but I love garlic. And when it's cooked from the very beginning, when it's cooked a long time, it doesn't have quite a potent flavor. It just kind of gently infuses the entire dish, which is really nice. It doesn't end up tasting like just garlic when you're eating the dish. So there you go. That should be chopped well enough. Okay, and there's one onion. I've already peeled this one and cut the ends off. And I think I talked about how there are a couple different ways or several different ways of chopping an onion. I probably don't have the best method, but it works pretty fine for me. Just as long as I don't cut my fingers, I'm fine. It does help to have a really sharp knife. If your knife is dull, that you're just kind of asking to have your finger cut. And luckily, I have a handy little knife sharpener that I use a little bit of every so often just to sharpen the knife. And right now, because I'm taking so long to do this, my eyes are starting to water. Oh my god. Okay. I've seen a lot of, or read a lot of methods online on how to keep your eyes from watering. Oh my god. And I'm usually too lazy to remember those methods. So like I said, I'm not a trained chef or anything. I just cook because I can, and I cook what tastes good. But I don't always have the best methods. But that should just be fine. Oh my god. Alright, next ingredient. Okay, next are the veggie meatballs. So, here they are. I've never used this before, so we'll see how it works. If I can get it out of the package. There you go. And oh my god, my eyes are still a little bit watery from the onions. I think it's the fumes of the onions that make your eyes water, so I went ahead and rinsed off my cutting board as well. Oh, this is interesting. It looks like, I'm going to put it on the cutting board here, so you can see it. It looks like already cooked meat. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to use this to make meatballs. Let me see. I'll try a little bit here. Yeah, no, this just crumbles. It's just like ground beef. So, damn it. Live and learn, right? Okay, well, this is how it's going to be. I'm just going to start cooking with this, just like the meatballs of last week, and let this char a bit, and we'll see how that goes. So, yay, I'm happy that you guys are on this learning experience with me. Okay, so those meatballs didn't work. The veggie meat just basically had the consistency of cooked ground beef, and that's the way it's going to be, so that's the way we're going to use it. One last thing to cut are the flat anchovies. I'm going to, should I let some of this oil drain or leave? I'm gonna drain this oil that's in here because that'll probably make the flavor of the dish a little bit too fishy. So I'm gonna get rid of that. And once that's drained, I'm going to grab the anchovies and just put them on this cutting board and just finely chop them. That's pretty much finely chopped. Alright, there you go. Alright, here we go. So, I'm going to just start with a little bit of olive oil in a fairly low heat pan. So unlike last week where we had raw meat that was going to be going into the dish, this is the veggie beef, so it doesn't need to cook at all. So I am actually going to start with the onions, because that'll be the base rather than the meat from last week. So you can go ahead and throw in the onions. And your oil doesn't have to be hot, you know, you can just go ahead and put it into low heat or no heat oil and then just turn the flame on. Flame on. Just stir that around a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this and let the pan heat up a bit, and I'll let it sit there for about a few minutes and then uncover it and do some more stirring. So here we go. Alright, it's been another minute, so I'm going to take this lid off and stir this around some more. The onions are just starting to get translucent, and what I'm going to do now is add the garlic. That's a lot of garlic. And the anchovies. Alright, so there's the garlic and the anchovies, and you're just going to stir that around. It's really important to not let the garlic burn, but a nice little char is nice. Really brings out the flavor. And right now it's kind of got that fishy smell from the anchovies, but that should go away. So I'm just going to keep on stirring this. Again, it's still on pretty low heat. I haven't turned the heat up, but the nice thing about Dutch ovens is that it retains a lot of the heat that is fed into it. And you can see these onions are getting really nice and soft. So I'll let that go for uncovered for a couple more minutes. Alright, it's been a couple minutes. You'll notice I haven't added any salt yet because there's quite a bit of salt in the anchovies already. And now that's pretty translucent and soft, I'm going to put in a couple packages of the sliced cremini mushrooms. This will actually be more mushrooms than last week, which is fine with me because I love mushrooms, but mushrooms also have that umami flavor that is really nice, and especially in this case because there's actually not going to be any meat in this dish. You'll notice I haven't put any of the veggie meat in here yet, and that's because it's already cooked, and I want to cook the stuff that's not cooked yet first. So I've stirred that around a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of oil at this point because the mushrooms are like sponges and they just soak up all the juices, and I don't want this to burn. So just a little bit of oil. Stir that up. And you'll remember last week, once the mushrooms cooked down for a bit, they released a lot of liquid, which will just basically add to the flavor of the dish. Maybe a little bit more oil. There you go. That's good. And once this is cooked down, I'm going to taste it and see if the anchovies have added enough salty flavor to it. If not, then I will just add some salt. Right, so I'm going to let that sit and cook on low heat, covered, for a few minutes. Alright, it's been a few minutes. Let's see how these mushrooms look. And yes, lots of fluid now in here, which is nice. I would like the mushrooms to cook down a little bit more, but I'm going to just try and see how this tastes right now and see if it needs any more salt. It's actually not bad. I think I'm going to add a little bit of salt because I'm going to be adding diced tomatoes to this as well, and some chicken broth. So that's going to add some more to this that will dilute the salty flavor. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is add the diced tomatoes. It's a can of diced tomatoes. And these diced tomatoes don't have any added salt to the can, so it'll allow you to control the amount of salt that goes into your dish. Alright, so I'm going to let this stew covered for probably a good 5 minutes. Alright, it's been a few minutes, and ooh, that's pretty warm. I'm going to get a little oven mitt, and here we go. There we go. That looks really good. Smells good too. Although it does kind of smell like fish. So I'm going to hope that the chicken broth that I add and the veggie meat will get rid of that smell. Okay. Let's see how this tastes. Oh, it does taste really good though. Alright, so now that this has been stewing for a while, I'm going to add a whole quart of chicken broth because that's what the pasta is going to cook in. So here we go. This is Trader Joe's regular chicken broth. There is salt added to this, so that'll add some salt too. I'd like to minimize the amount of actual salt I'm adding myself. There you go. Stir that up a bit. And I'm gonna turn up the heat and let it come to a boil. Okay. As this is coming to a boil, I'm looking at it right now, and this is probably a little bit too much liquid for the amount of pasta I'm putting in. So I'm going to let it boil a bit, just slightly down, because I'm going to be adding some more liquid when I add in the heavy cream. So that's going to be absorbed by the pasta as well. So I don't really want this to be a soup. I want it to, or a stew even. I just want it to be a thick sauce for the actual pasta. So we'll let that come to a boil. Okay, this has been boiling for a little bit of while. So actually this is a good time to put in some cayenne pepper, because I like to add a little bit of heat to my dishes. I'm a wimp, as you know, or some of you know, when it comes to spicy food. So I like to add some spice just to try and increase my tolerance for spicy food. That was actually a lot of cayenne pepper for me. I got a little distracted because I was talking. So I'm just going to mix that in, and I'm going to try a little bit of this soup and see how it tastes. Hopefully it's not too spicy. But even if it is, the spice will be diluted a little bit with the heavy cream, and we'll see how it goes. That's not too spicy, so that's good. Alright, now that it's been boiling for a while, I'm going to add the macaroni. Add the entire package. It's a 16-ounce package. And I'm going to stir that around. Now last week, I let this sit, and some of the macaroni stuck to the bottom of the pan. And it wasn't difficult to get it off, I just needed to scrape a little bit, but I'm going to try and prevent that. So what I'm going to do is turn this down a little bit. And I'm going to cover it. And I'm going to just check it more frequently. Every time I check it, I'm going to stir it around just to keep the bottom from getting stuck to the macaroni. Okay, so this has just been boiling, covered for, lightly boiling covered for just a couple minutes, and the pasta was already really stuck to the bottom. So fortunately, it's pretty easy to get off just by scraping gently like this. And I think I'll just do this for the rest of the duration of the pasta's cooking. Every so often, just a stir and leave it uncovered, because I don't want that to burn to the bottom. So the other thing you'll notice is that this is getting a little bit thick, and that's what I want, and that's because of the starch that's coming from the pasta itself. That'll thicken your sauce. So I'm just going to keep on doing this until it's cooked. Got a nice little boil now. Still scraping little bits of macaroni from the bottom, but there we go. And now what I'm going to do, now that the fluid is reducing quite a bit, is add the heavy cream. So I'm adding a whole pint of heavy cream to this. That actually added a whole bunch of fluid, or liquid, so this might actually end up being a lot more liquidy than I had planned. But what you can do is just let it boil down, let the fluid boil down, so boil it uncovered. And this pasta still has a ways to go to cook, so it might end up getting thicker. We'll see. Okay, I would say this pasta is about halfway done, so I'm gonna now add the veggie beef. If you remember, it's kind of the consistency of cooked ground beef, so it comes in this little log. I'm just gonna crumble it up and let it fall in. Ooh! That was unplanned. Okay. And then the second half. This is actually going to be making quite a lot, which is very exciting, because it means I can share it with more people. There you go. And I'm gonna wash my hands. Alright. You'll notice my shirt is kind of sauced from this little splash. but that's just fine. You have to break that up. But this is actually turning out to be quite thick, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to turn this down so that it doesn't boil over. Alright, so this has been stirred up fairly thoroughly. So I'm going to try it and see how it tastes. It's not bad. I am missing some of the meaty flavor from last week's sausage, but it's actually not bad. I'm not sure if it's salt that this needs anymore, because the saltiness seems fine, and I barely added any. But it just, I think I would like to have more flavor to it, more complexity of flavor. So, let me think. Okay, so I was just trying to decide what to add to, if there's anything I could add to this other than salt to make it more flavorful. And I happened to look to my right, and there's a bottle of sesame oil there. And at first I was like, well, you know, I really like the flavor of sesame oil, but I'm not sure it would go into a dish like this. But I tried a spoonful of this with like a drop of sesame oil, and it actually added a nice flavor to it. So I am going to add a little bit of sesame oil to this and see if that kind of gives it that extra thing that I want. Now sesame oil goes a long way. It's very pungent. This is toasted sesame oil. So I'm just going to do a little dash, and that's it. Seems like not that much, but like I said, a little goes a long way with sesame oil. It's an extremely pungent but yummy flavor. So we'll see where that takes us. I'm going to stir this up for a bit. Alright, so I don't even smell the sesame oil, which is actually good. It means that I can either leave it as is or add more. So I'm going to try it and see if it has a different flavor. I'm going to add a little bit more, because I don't actually taste it at all. So I need to be careful with this, again. There. That should hopefully be good. We'll see. Okay, so that's stirred up pretty well. Let's see how this tastes. It smells not very much like sesame oil, which is great. It's the way I want it. That's much better. I still can't tell that it's sesame oil, but it adds a nice complexity of flavor to this dish, which is what I wanted. So yay, sesame oil. Anyway, this is my dish. This is a lot, actually. This is a little bit more than last week. This is a 6 quart Dutch oven, so this will be enough to feed me and some of my coworkers for a few meals, which is nice. And you'll notice that a lot of my cooking, again, like this week, I'm following a very loose recipe. There is no actual strict regimen that you need to stick to. And some things don't work out, like the veggie meat I had wasn't the consistency that I had originally planned, but I went ahead and used it, and it tastes just fine. The dish didn't have as much flavor as I wanted, and I happened to spy some sesame oil on the side and added a little bit of that, and that actually made the flavor just like how I wanted. Just giving it a little bit more of a complex layer, which is what I wanted. So there you go. I don't know what to call this dish, but I am open to suggestions for a veggie meat that I can actually roll up into a meatball and sear, just like regular meat, if that's possible. This one I got from Trader Joe's, but I'm open to going to other places if you'd like to give me suggestions. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll stay tuned for my future videos.